Hey, DirtyWilly here. I present you the DirtyWilly Screen-Clearing PinnacleKilling Lightning Spear Tactician. This is the endgame variant and evolution of the dirty cheap Lightning Spear plus Shock Burst Rounds Tactician that only cost around 50 exalts. Unfortunately, Crossbow just wasn't in the cards right now, Shock Burst was too heavily nerfed, and the Storm Lance replacement is just too much fun. We're going to be taking advantage of three main mechanics. First, the Tactician's Ascendancy, a solid plan. Persistent buffs have 50% less reservation. This by far gives the Tactician more spirit than any character in the game. Don't let the 271 spirit fool you. This is actually double, 542 spirit, and only needs one single low-cost item to achieve. Second, a unique helmet called the Deepest Tower Spirit Bone Crown. It grants enemies in your presence count as being on low life. A very interesting mechanic, which the mercenary classes are in a great position to take advantage of, and we'll get back to. Also, I have to give credit to Ignatius on YouTube, who originally posted this great idea. And third, of course, are Frenzy Charges, which powers the whole build. Since this is automated, we won't need to go over it in full detail, but we'll touch on it as we go. I will note the build also uses a unique amulet, Choir of the Storm Jade Amulet, which grants critical hits, ignore enemy monster, lightning resistance. This just ensures all three of our 3-button build skills are always doing maximum damage. Skill gems. Since this build uses a monstrous amount of spirit and a few uniques, I'm sure you can imagine there are quite a number of items to go over in this list. However, this is all posted on Mobalytics, and for sake of time, we'll just touch on the important ones, and we'll cover the other ones very quickly. Our first and primary skill is the Lightning Spear. It's set up with a very standard build, using Volt, Fork, Perpetual Charge, Lightning Penetration, and Pinpoint Critical. Pinpoint Critical is important for our build because this will guarantee critical hits and that we're always generating Frenzy Charges. Next is Storm Lance. This is going to be our primary damage ability, mostly for bosses, and it is outfitted with Primal Armament, Martial Tempo, so we can spam it for speed, Lightning Infusion, Deliberation, and Execute, that interesting one where we can take advantage of that low life mechanic. And then there's Orb of Storms, our third skill. It has Persistence, Font of Rage to build up rage while you're standing in it, Lightning Exposure, Strip Away, and Expanse. The rest of our skills are all going to be spirit-based. And going over very quickly, we have Herald of Thunder for our clears, Neural Overload, Innervate, Magnified Effect, Electrocute, and Deadly Herald. We have Ghost Dance for protection, Fast Forward, Cannibalism, Clarity, Wind Dancer also for protection, Unbreakable, Maim, Conduction. Trinity, it's going to give us a little extra lightning damage. We have Fire Mastery, Cold Mastery, and Lightning Mastery. These all add levels to the skill. Then we have Attrition, which is great for bossing, Combat Frenzy, Precision, Profusion, and our important skill, Cast on Critical, which casts Sniper's Mark, building up more Frenzy Charges, Ingenuity, Impetus, and Energy Retention. I will note that on occasion, you'll need to switch out the skill gem for bossing, very tough bosses, but we'll go over that. And last but not least, going very quickly, we have in our Malice skill, just because we could, we have Vitality, Herbalism, Dire Strike, and Mysticism, and Lightning Bolt, which is actually granted through our amulet. We have Considered Casting, Elemental Focus, Spell Echo, and Zenith. One important thing to note for the spirit-based skills is that while you have an Omen Scepter in your hand, you have that monstrous 271 spirit, but when you switch weapons, you lose all that spirit and skills will automatically get deactivated. What we want to avoid here is deactivating very important skills. The skills that we want to keep active are Ghost Dance, Trinity, and Attrition. These are skills that have buildup over time, and turning them off would lose the benefit of all of that buildup, so we don't want that to happen. The way we do that is by selecting those skills and making sure that they're set on both Weapon Set 1 and Weapon Set 2. Trinity on weapon set 1, weapon set 2, Attrition, weapon set 1, weapon set 2, and all the other skills, spirit-based skills, we're going to turn off for weapon set 2. That would be Herald of Thunder, Wind Dancer, Combat Frenzy, and Cast on Critical. Again, these skills aren't important for just simply switching weapons, casting an orb, and switching back. On to the gear. So for gear, we really don't have anything that's terribly expensive. Most of this stuff can be achieved, if not found, on your own. The only major uniques we're going to have, which is a fairly common item, the Tangle-Tongue Forked Spear. This one has a little more extra critical hit chance, but it's not really needed. Of course, we already went over the Deepest Tower, Spirit Bone Crown, and the Choir of the Storm Jade Amulet. Other than that, the majority of this is, I wouldn't say cheap, but not expensive either. The boots do have 35% increased movement speed. Movement speed's always desirable, I think, just about on any class. But all of the items here are fairly easily obtainable and things that you can just kind of find in your travels. If I had to estimate, I'd say I spent around 5 divine total for all the gear you see here, but there is one item which will really enhance our build, and that's the Effigy of Cruelty Antler Focus, which grants critical hits with spells apply 3 to 5 stacks of critical weakness. So anytime we're facing a boss, we're going to go ahead and cast our Orb of Storms. And as long as we're standing in it, we're going to build up rage, we're going to get all the effects of this, and all we have to do is click our lightning spear, and we're right back to fighting. That's pretty much it for the gear. There is one item that I added to the build, which just made it easy to cast, really, which was a basic wand in the secondary weapon spot. So this way, whenever you switch weapons, makes it easy to cast, easy to switch right back just by pressing a button. This build does use an unset ring, which gives us an additional skill socket or skill slot in order to put another skill in here. But without this ring, I would just simply remove the Trinity skill. Passive tree. The passive tree uses a very standard lightning spear build, or at least what is a very common lightning spear build. And our goal as a mercenary tactician is to get over into the lightning spear tree as fast as possible, and we're going to utilize a few mechanics of our own along the way. This is all posted on Mobalytics, which is a link in the description below. You can just follow along there. But again, we're taking a very basic spear path, or lightning spear path. We're taking almost all of the spear abilities, and then we're grabbing movement speed anywhere we can, and then custom tailor fitting the rest of the build for our tactician. Going over the rest of the passive skill tree, there isn't really anything terribly worth noting, other than on occasion, you might have to respec a few points into other areas to help fight pinnacle content. For example, fighting tier 4 Zesht, I found taking these pinning abilities really helped keep him locked in place. I did mention this was a pinnacle killing build. It's not a pinnacle melting build, at least not yet. But as far as the rest of the content goes, or the majority of your common content, clearing tier 15, 16, 17 waystones, killing map bosses, that it absolutely melts. So going back to this low life mechanic, enemies in your presence count as being on low life. What I found was I was really struggling to produce high single target damage against pinnacle bosses or any really tough content. And lo and behold, here's the answer. The tactician or the mercenaries have a very quick path to this passive wheel here, and every one of these passives adds 30% increased damage against enemies that are on low life. What this means is as long as you keep the enemy in your presence, you are going to do a boatload more damage. So we're really going to leverage this as best we can. Since we already have to be near to the enemy or have the enemy in our presence, we're going to also take advantage of any other near abilities. For example, projectiles have 40% increased critical damage with enemies within 2 meters. Projectiles have 25% increased damage with hits against enemy within 2 meters, as well as any support skills or support gems, such as the Execute, which also does 50% more damage with enemies that are on low life. The main takeaway here is that the closer you get to the enemy, the better, and we're basically a bunch of low-lifers. How does it play? Well, very simple. You throw your lightning spear at everything, and the entire screen clears. That's it. If anything manages to survive, You can throw a Storm Lance at it. Very rare, if ever, you need to use this. And whenever you're fighting tougher bosses or map bosses, you can throw an Orb of Storms down, which will gain rage and amplify damage. So, let's go check it out. Throw your Lightning Spear, clear the screen. Oh, reach.
Another notch on me helmet.
Watch out for fireballs. Just stay on the move. Keep clearing the screen. You definitely do not want to stand still. It's okay to round up monsters every now and again. I just ignored my own advice and ran into a fireball. Frenzy charges will automatically generate. I just threw a Storm Lance there. But for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward build. Lots of loots. Now try to avoid getting caught up in the monsters. Stay on the move. And kill. As you can see, the class is tanky. He's not invincible, but he is semi-tanky. You can get yourself out of trouble pretty easily. This build is definitely one of the best map clearers out there. I did have to tone the damage down, or the clearing ability down a little bit for some Pinnacle content. But other than that, as far as clearing goes, this is a very forgiving, very easy to use class. Hey, no reach! I'm going to try to get myself in trouble here and not die. Just to show you, he is a little tankier. Storm Lance. Don't want to hit that. Very forgiving. Whiff. There's the screen clearer reload. When it comes to bossing, there is one thing that can help a little bit for the fight. It's not a requirement for most bosses, but some of the harder ones, I would recommend it. And that's to take your Profusion support gem out of Combat Frenzy and put it into Cast on Critical. What this will allow for is you'll generate more Frenzy charges whenever you throw the Storm Lance as well. So we're always generating Frenzy charges, and it allows us to really spam that ability. Cast our orb, stand in it, build up frenzies, spam the Storm Lance. Pretty straightforward. Don't forget to put your Profusion skill back in after a boss fight, though this is fairly interchangeable. Sometimes there may be situations where you want it more on Cast and Critical when you're trying to generate frenzy charges from Storm Lance. Most of the time, most of the maps you're clearing, you're going to want it in your Combat Frenzy skill, because it'll just help generate more charges as you travel the map.
Another notch on me helmet.
Little tip here, always open the white chest first, followed by the next level of chest when you do an expedition. I find, I don't know if they patched it, but it increases your chances of dropping garbage. Logbooks. I do need to work on the single target damage a little bit. As I said, it's pinnacle killing, but not pinnacle melting. I have a few ideas I'm going to try to see if I can get it there. And I do also want to go back and make a guide on how to progress up to this level. You know, levels 1 through 10, 10 through 20, so on and so forth, how to kind of get there. So kind of an early guide, which I may work on. Again, this is a really fun build to play. Because of all the automations built into it, it really just lets you go out there and enjoy the content. And I will say the content from this patch is very good. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. More content to come.